We're now live. We're live. Welcome, everybody. And we'll call the meeting to order, and we're going to go into close. So, Madam Clerk, you read the resolution.
Moved by Councillor Rebel, seconded by Councillor Martin. Resolved that council resolve itself into committee of the whole closed session as authorized under section 239 of the Municipal Act to consider adoption of closed minutes of meeting held
You are
in
now live.
2022.
Just to start all over.
Labor relations or employee negotiations as it relates to attendance management. Labor relations or employee negotiations as it relates to the potential location of an additional land ambulance base, a proposed or pending acquisition or disposition of land by the municipality or local board as it relates to property acquisition for the KMP Trail.
Any questions or comments on that resolution? I'll call the vote. All in favor? Carried. So we'll move in camera, and Angelique, I think you'll cut the public off.
Yes, we will. Just one moment.
He's leaving now.
She got you in trouble, Richard.
Yeah, that's all right. I get in trouble all the time.
Chris, it looks like you swapped my mic out. I don't have the chair mic anymore. Is that?
Yeah, the chair mic isn't working properly.
Okay. Have we given the public access? You telling your screen?
We're not recording yet. Are we?
You are streaming live.
Okay, thank you very much, Angela. We'll resume open session. And I believe, Madam Clerk, you've got a resolution to read.
Moved by Councillor Vanderwall, seconded by Councillor Fowler, resolved that council rise from committee of the whole session without recording.
Any comments? All in favor? Okay, do we have any pecuniary interest in the nature thereof to declare today? Having seen none, we'll record that and move on to the adoption of the minutes of February 16th.
Moved by Councillor Smith, seconded by Councillor Higgs, resolved that the minutes of the regular council meeting held February 16, 2022 be adopted.
Questions or comments on those? All in favor? Carried. And deputations, proclamations, I guess we're going into committee of the whole.
Moved by Councillor McDonald, seconded by Councillor Rebel, that council adjourn and meet as committee of the whole with the warden in the chair.
All in favor? Carried. And I guess the first one is the report from CEO Kelly Pender, who's taking the mic.
Thank you, Word. Just let me share my screen here. Thank you, Ward. Thank you, Council. Today is St. Patrick's Day Eve. I trust you have your green beer in order and ready to go for tomorrow. As usual, I'll pick off a couple of things on each page. Certainly available to answer any questions or to follow up. So a busy month and a bit on the schedule there. Particularly impressed with the Charlotte Lake school site open house and discussions about community servicing. Over 80 individuals registered, lots of great comments from the public, and certainly looking forward to walking that site when it's not empty for the next couple of weeks with Councillor Smith, and also meeting with MTO on March the 1st. And big kudos to MTO. Several of their ferry staff that are responsible for ferries in Eastern Ontario attended the area. They were looking at, obviously, the Amherst Island ferry, but for us, it was the Howe Island ferry, the Howe Island Township ferry, and Simcoe Island ferry. And I think they've got a much better understanding of things on the ground. And a big shout out to Rob Dakota and Christian, who spent a day with them showing them the ropes. And I think they really appreciate the fact that, as a group, we've got our act together, and all the ferry operations for Frontenac Islands are centralized and coordinated in a fashion that they can make one visit and make that work. So also had our OHT meeting yesterday. I'm now on the Finance and Resources Committee for the OHT. They are still committed to sending out voluntary invoices to all agencies to meet their budget requirements for 2022 and 2023. Brenda Orchard from LNA and myself were on the line and made the point that AMO was advising us not to do it, and that our councils have already established our budgets and not likely to be participating in that process. But it is voluntary at this point. The two wardens met with the full transitional leadership collaborative last week, and our staff, as we approved last week, have been meeting on the subgroups, and we'll be meeting with the two wardens to give them an update prior to their next TLC meeting. So making some progress. In terms of the Eastern Ontario Wardens Caucus, we had a CAO's meeting on February the 18th, which was virtual, and March the 11th, which was in person in Napanee. And I was there with then Warden Smith on March the 13th, and also in Napanee, which was the last live Wardens Caucus meeting. So 2 days less than 2 years for our next meeting, which when you think about it, passed in a heartbeat, but was probably the longest 2 years of everybody's lives. So it was a priority setting session, and the warden and I participated in that. We did have the help of John Matheson from Strategy Corps as usual to help us work through that. And John brings his usual high level attention to detail on talking about, you know, what can be a priority, how can you effectively advocate for that priority, and ultimately we'll probably have 45 minutes at the AMO conference, and how many things can you get through in 45 minutes. So he definitely helped us focus, and my computer wants me to reboot. So a number of different priorities, and one brought forward by this group in Ontario health teams continues. We'll be advocating for that, and Chair Robinson continues to sit on the AMO task force, healthcare task force, and will be continue to advocate for our position. Plus doctor recruitment, another issue that has seen rise in the area, will be a priority. And within the Wardens Caucus, so a little bit of a roundtable, there's I think 7 other municipalities or counties that are in some ways involved in doctor recruitment. I think the general perception is that at this point we're just competing with each other, and that there needs to be a more province-wide approach. So our advocacy is going to be in terms of how do we deal with that. And in the meantime, there's a motion on today's agenda to allow the warden and CAO to do some investigation. So I think we have a meeting with some of the counties that are currently doing doctor recruitment to see what their programs look like, so we can bring back a report to you sometime late spring and early summer. Understanding for the budget of 2023, we'll still continue to lobby the province for some sort of better approach than all of us just throwing money at the problem. Also,
I should mention that was a very lively discussion. It started off as there was only 2 of us interested in it, but when it was ourselves in Renfrew County, and when we got into it, everybody else started picking up on it. And what became about the lowest priority on the list, was a 13 or 14 we had. 14. It came up to the top of the very top of the list. So it was lively discussion. Yeah, yes.
Yeah. Mr. Warden, I think one of the priorities of that is that whatever the program is, we're not out there trying to steal a doctor from another locale. This should be a provincial undertaking to actually provide more doctors for everyone. And I've always been under the opinion that if we have an issue here, it doesn't solve anything to create an issue somewhere else to solve ours. So I'm for whatever we can do as a united front on this one.
yeah, and that was brought up at the table, and I think it largely has got us to where we are. And the general feeling is that doctor recruitment programs essentially rent a doctor for 5 years. They don't convince a doctor to stay forever. That most of them take their 5 years or whatever you're offering, and
The other thing that was talked about is the OMA's involvement here. So we got to get into that issue as well. So it's not just as simple as you would think.
May I ask a question?
Yes, Councilman.
Did the subject of foreign doctors,
Did the subject of foreign doctors accreditation come up? That was the discussion with OMA. OMA's got to get involved and allow that to be brought on the table and get them approved to work in Canada or Ontario.
We had a neighbor driving a taxi when I was in Brockville.
yeah, that. I don't think we want to talk too much about it here, but that's a big issue.
Yeah, and the Renfrew connection to all this is the warden.
Your mic, Bill?
So somebody is, sorry. The Renfrew connection to all this is that Warden Robinson, her day job is Dr. Recruitment, and she is chair of the Eastern Ontario Wards Caucus. So certainly quite interested in the subject and prepared to take a lead on that. Staying on the list of priorities is long-term care, which Frontenac County, myself, Susan, and Alex have been heavily involved in, particularly on the capital construction component, and also on the recruitment component. If you go on our website and look at the number of vacancies that we have at Fairmount, it's on any given day, 4, 5, 6 pages of scrolling to get to the bottom of the vacancies at Fairmount. There just aren't enough staff. New homes opening up in Napanee, new homes opening up here in Kingston, one in Athens in the next few years. There just are not enough staff to take care of our commitments to 4 hours of care. So that's a critical importance for all of the wards caucus. And of course, housing affordability, which is, even if you can recruit people, are there places for them to live? So things like increased the Charlotte Lake site and being able to put 40 units there as opposed to just 5 units, and how we create affordable housing. The task force that the province appointed and reported, and I reported on last week, were 54 different recommendations, and the province is taking serious looks at those, and I suspect if this government is reelected, a number of them will be implemented, which will effectively take control from our townships and the planning process, and give as of right development rights to developers to implement housing solutions. So it's going to be quite a change in the planning regime if the recommendations in that task force go forward. There is going to be a motion from the OWC regarding support for Ukraine, brought forward by Prince Edward County. We expected it by today, but hasn't arrived. But I know everybody's hearts and minds are with the people of Ukraine, and that we will be doing something at the next council meeting as a result of the motion from the Wards Caucus.
I guess on that, we did hear from some counties that they already allocated some money to send. So maybe if we discuss that at next meeting, we could consider that.
I think the request from the Wards Caucus is going to be $5,000 each,
I think so, yeah.
which is what several that are already provided. So,
And I think the Red Cross is matching that, or some other organization,
yes, well, the government can.
government can, through the Red Cross.
On the Eastern Ontario Leadership Council, we had our meeting on March the 23rd. We expect a fairly significant announcement before the end of the month with regards to labor market, a project that ULC has been working on for a long time. And Kathy Wood, who is our project coordinator, and Ron Higgins, Councillor Higgins is the chair, but we will be replacing or renominating UWC members for the ULC at April meeting of UWC. I won't go through the AMO and federal updates, but I will add that both Warden Doyle and Councillor Higgs have been working on the food policy. And Warden Doyle reminds me that it's been 8 years that they've been talking about getting food education into schools. The private members bill just passed, spearheaded by Darryl Cramp, who is running again, but always a good friend of Eastern Ontario, to make sure that food education is on the curriculum for September. And it's been an 8-year slog for both Warden Doyle and more recently Councillor Higgs, and we thank you for your efforts and look forward to seeing what that curriculum looks like. So, some of our engagement numbers continue to be a lively amount of engagement throughout all of our channels, and Matt Mills and our paramedic superintendents who also participate, and of course our senior staff at Fairmount Home as well. Some things highlighting the children's ice fishing derby in Sydenham and Valentine's Day post from Fairmount Home. And one of the most visited non-landing pages was the KMP Trail. Continues to see a lot of activity, probably one of the best snowmobile seasons in the last 3 or 4 or 5. So very much appreciate the visits to the landing page for the KMP Trail. At the last meeting, we were asked to provide a, sorry for the overlap in titles there, but we were asked to provide a summary of Twitter followers for other paramedic services. So that's provided for your purposes there. And Matt wants me to note that we don't just measure the number of followers, because that doesn't necessarily translate into active participation. We look at the number of engagements, which is likes and retweets and replies. So we look at both those things. But the Frontenac News last month, in case you missed it, an introductory page to Debbie Miller, and we appreciate Debbie stepping in and hopefully getting back to work in the next few weeks, or back to the office. Everybody's been working at home. You'll get to meet Debbie in a more personal basis, and I'm excited for all the work that Debbie and Richard will be doing for the economic development team. Very good engagement, participation on the former Charlotte Lake site, as mentioned, over 70 registered participants and 86 views within 24 hours, which is important. And the bottom graph shows the traffic and engagement on this project throughout February. So even outside of the presentation.
Yeah, sorry, just want to point out the center picture there, they're paper straws. So I just want to make sure everybody know that.
But minutes will reflect that.
I want to point out they're not fun to drink out by.
As they collapse. Get a drink fast.
So the graph shows that not just on the date of the meeting, that there was a lot of interest leading up to that meeting. And I think the consultants did an excellent job of introducing the subject and beginning the discussion. And certainly thank you to Central Frontenac staff and council who also actively participated. Planning department continues to be extremely busy. Again, on track for, we're only in March, but already on track for another record-breaking year, which is 4 in a row. And the number of projects ongoing for council's consideration, and we're looking forward to the Marysville secondary plan, which will be the keystone project for Frontenac Islands over the next couple of years. And with any kind of luck, we hope to have a new ferry in the next couple months. Announcing a date, but forward to that, which will certainly change the lives of everybody on Frontenac Island, both islands. And our update on planning. And just a reminder that if you're interested in the destination marketing plan currently being worked on with our economic development staff and the RTO, there is still opportunity to participate in that by going to the Engage Frontenac site that we share with all of the scholars. Human resources update, again, continued strong. Number of applications and interviews. Our Deputy Chief of Operations, as we announced last week, Heather Edward, is moving out west. successful recruitment to Dean Popoff from Halton, who will be beginning in 2 weeks. maybe?
28.
I'm losing track of time on the 28th. And we look forward to working with Dean. Comes with great experience from the Halton region, both as a deputy chief and as a superintendent in charge of a number of different areas that will help us here as well. On the bargaining front, and thank you, Barb and Alex and all of the team, extremely busy on the bargaining front. They bring me in when needed, but all of these dates are in their calendar, and for every 1 day of face-to-face negotiations, there's at least 2 days of preparation required. And for example, and just costing some of their estimates can take hours because we're back and forth with insurance providers and doing calculations, and certainly the finance team has a big role to play in that. And our HRS system that we received the grant for, and budget approval is being implemented, and the project planning continues. So that's dividing Barb and her staff, finance and IT staff again, but a really important project for us that will pay dividends down the road. You may have met Danielle as you walked in today, and she'll be with us through to June when Brianna comes back. And again, welcome to Deputy Chief. Are there any questions? Mr. Ward?
Any questions from council? Very good. Thank you, sir. I think now we move on to recommend reports from the CA. Madam Clerk will read the resolution.
So the first one is the report that was deferred from the February 16th, 2022 meeting. Moved by Councillor Martin, seconded by Councillor Vanderwall. Resolved that the Council of the County of Frontenac receive the Office of the Chief Administrative Officer expropriation of lands for the purposes of the PV Trail report, and further that the clerk be directed to introduce a bylaw later in the meeting to authorize an application to approve the expropriation of lands for the purposes of the PV Trail.
Questions or comments? All in favor? Carried.
Moved by Councillor Fowler, seconded by Councillor Smith, be it resolved that the Council of the County of Frontenac receive the corporate services appointment of an area weed inspector for the County of Frontenac report for information, and further that the clerk be directed to bring forward a bylaw later in the meeting appointing Kelly J. Pender as area weed inspector for the County of Frontenac.
Activities expected to double next year?
As is my pay.
Have you completed the weed inspector course yet? Identifiable weeds.
30 many years ago, I was that.
And how many different weeds do we have in our region?
There are 20 some on the restricted list yeah.
There's a new jumping worm out, so I just heard about that.
That's
Yeah,
right. We need a worm inspector.
a jumping worm.
Jumping worm, yes.
How about hogweed and poison ivy?
They're on the list.
Yeah. If there's no more questions, I'll call the vote. All in favor? And congratulations, sir.
Moved by Councillor Higgs, seconded by Councillor McDonald, be it resolved that the Council of the County of Frontenac receive the corporate services consideration of providing a rent assistance program report, and further that the unbudgeted amount of $7,092 as part of the year-end reconciliation in 2022 for a separate rent supplement program be funded from the social housing out of scope reserve, and further that staff be directed to bring forward to the 2023 budget deliberations the potential for the County of Frontenac to support 2 additional rent assistance subsidies in the County of Frontenac.
Any questions on that one? All in favor? Carried.
Moved by Councillor Rebel, seconded by Councillor Martin, resolved that the Council of the County of Frontenac receive the Office of the Chief Administrative Officer report to Frontenac Townships on Family Physician Recruitment Report for information, and further that Council authorize the Board and Chief Administrative Officer to investigate options and bring the matter to the attention of the Province of Ontario and the Eastern Ontario Boards Caucus.
Yes, Ron.
As you know, Councillor Smith and some other people had a meeting about the family recruitment thing. And they have asked lower tiers for some money to attend a conference. And I thought that what I read was we were maybe thinking that we would just ask the county because it is all of the same municipalities, but I don't see a request in this report. And obviously it would be too late for the next council meeting. So I don't know where that went or what happened to it, or if it wasn't actually put in. I know that the lower tiers are committed if the county's not, if it's not coming from you. Yes.
Just to respond to that, I actually didn't bring it forward to the county since the ask was $3,000. And our council approved up to the $3,000 if the other municipalities didn't come in on it. So far, South Frontenac has approved 1,000, and Ron's been away, so I haven't spoken to the north. And Dennis, I'm not sure if you've taken it to your council yet about sharing in that cost. So we're going for the bigger bucks from the county and the smaller bucks locally. That's kind of where I've left it. But it isn't a conference, it's actually a recruitment and retention for Eastern Ontario for the rural docks in Ottawa in mid to late April.
And I think Dr. Bell was going to that.
Actually, Dr. Kunik,
Okay.
So in other words, we're just going to leave it the way it is.
yes,
Thank you.
that was a long answer for leave it.
No.
Anything else before I call the vote? All in favor? Carried.
Moved by Councillor Vanderwall, seconded by Councillor Fowler. Be it resolved that the Council of the County of Frontenac receive the office of the Chief Administrative Officer authorization to enter into agreements of purchase and sale for the KMP Trail Report, and further that the County of Frontenac purchase lands legally described as part of Lot 2, Concession 8, Palmerston, as in FR 770287, Township of North Frontenac, being part of PIN 36209-0004 LT, that is required for the KMP Trail extension to Clarendon Station in the amount of $12,000, and further that the warden and clerk be authorized to sign the agreement of purchase and sale and all other documents required to purchase. And further that the warden and clerk be authorized to execute agreements of purchase and sale and all other documents required to complete the purchase of the additional identified properties of interest for the extension of the KMP Trail between Clarendon Station and the boundary with Lanark County in amounts not to exceed the parameters approved by council.
Yes, Councillor McDonald.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Chair, I think that should say in the paragraph, from Clarendon Station, not to.
I'm making that correction now. So it would be, it's an actual extension to the boundary of Lanark County.
Right, from Clarendon.
Good point. Anything else? I'll call the vote. All in favor? Carried. And we've got a remuneration report. Guess no questions on those. Liaison appointees, Fairmount Home Liaison Report from Councilor Martin. Any questions on those? No. No reports from external boards. Advisory Committee, Council. I guess we're down to return to council. That was quick. No, I'm sorry. Yes, we have one.
I just have a question. Does this council actually have any say in what protocols for COVID on or off moving forward, or is it all regulated basically by the home of what we can do here? I know we've had all these discussions around our council, what we're going to do, starting as of, and so I was just wondering if we have any of that input, or do you make that decision because it's a home?
Essentially, public health will be making the decisions, so we're inviting staff back to the office as of March the 21st, but there's still going to be significant restrictions at Fairmont Homes. So because we have a number of staff that go back and forth, it complicates the issue, but Barb and Bonnie and Fairmont staff has worked out some protocols to make it work. But essentially, it's provincial and public health dictates.
And would they be dictating if we want to open council meetings to the public and that too, because of where we are?
If we stay in this room, there are no restrictions. If we move over to Fairmount back to the auditorium, there still would be restrictions. Having said that, at 3 o'clock this afternoon, it could all change, but that's essentially where we stand today, is that there are, as of March the 21st, there aren't room restrictions, and invite the public back.
Thank you.
Just to follow up on that, we will be doing virtual and in person. So the public, for instance, can always come into the meetings via Zoom.
So unless a member of the public registers as a deputation, they wouldn't be able to come into the meeting via Zoom. That link is not open to the public, but they are able to watch it on the YouTube channel.
Just to sort of play a little bit devil's advocate then, because we actually had to pass another bylaw to say that we would include the technology period moving forward, which we had to do last night because it was just in place because of the state of emergency. So we're not going to have a blended model here. We're just.
Sorry, through you, Warden Doyle. Yes, we will have a blended model. We will continue to live stream. We will continue to have the Zoom open for members of council that are not able to attend in person. But the public itself does not get a link to that Zoom feed unless they register as a deputation and they're required to speak.
And then they come in on Zoom.
That's correct.
Okay, we're ready to move back into regular meeting.
Moved by Councillor Smith, seconded by Councillor Higgs, that council revert from committee of the whole council to council.
All in favor? Carried.
Moved
Adopted
by-
report.
Sorry, moved by Councillor McDonald, seconded by Councillor Rebel, that the report of the committee of the whole be adopted and that the necessary actions or bylaws be enacted.
Any more questions before I call the vote? All in favor? Carried. Do we have any notice of motions? For next meeting? No. And we've got a long list of communications. No questions on those?
That's all.
Yes, go ahead.
Yes, Mr. Warden, I noticed on the list that there are a lot of dissolution of the Ontario Land Trust. There's counted 10 of them on the report. Is this the old system or the new system that we have with the Planning Act?
Well, that's new, right, Kelly?
Yeah, so the OMB became LPAT, and LPAT became the Ontario Land Tribunal, so they're calling for, in the old language, the dissolution of the Ontario Municipal Board. The Minister of Municipal Affairs has been very clear that he's not going to take that action, and I expect that, subject to provincial election on June 3rd, there may be changes after that, but there won't be changes prior.
Okay, thank you.
So stay tuned. And I think we got one committee member to add to the Community Development Advisory Committee.
That's through you, Warden Doyle, that's correct. So we only received the one application and that was from Robert Shaw. So if council is in agreement with that, moved by Councillor Martin, seconded by Councillor Van Wall, that Robert Shaw be appointed as community representative to the Community Development Advisory Committee, whose term shall expire November 14th, 2022, and further that bylaw 2013-0020 be amended accordingly.
Any questions or comments? All in favor? Carried. Public question period. I don't see public. Bylaws.
Moved by Councillor Fowler, seconded by Councillor Smith, resolved that we be given to the member to introduce bylaws A through D that have been circulated to all members of county council, and that bylaws A through D be read a first and second time.
Any questions? All in favor? Carried.
Moved by Councillor Fowler, seconded by Councillor Smith, that bylaws A through D be read a third time, signed, sealed, and finally passed.
Questions? No? All in favor?
Moved by Councillor Higgs, seconded by Councillor McDonald, that the meeting hereby adjourn at 10:13 a.m.
All in favor? Carried. Thank you, folks. I think we got some of us had